Hello, everybody. This is the channel Virtu, and today I'd like to look at an interesting viewpoint of is the act of listening, playing, or writing music against our nature? That is it warranted in the long run if we want to enjoy a happy, virtue-ridden life? I'll get into what our nature means in a second, but what you should know is that we will be talking about Stoic principles a lot in this video. So, first of all, I trisected music into three categories in the introduction: listening, playing, and writing. And I just want to go over a few personal experiences I have with each so that maybe you can see how well versed I am in each of these and maybe find any biases that I might have. So, first, we know that listening music encompasses a variety of genres, including rap and classical, and that the type of music that you listen to, whether it be rap or classical, can say a lot of things, and these genres usually have a certain message that they want to express. And it just so happens that some rap is very vice ridden, if that makes sense, because they talk about drugs and violence and all that nasty stuff. And classical, because it's mostly instrumental, is not able to talk about those vices, and thus it's sort of better in a way. Anyways, that's my thing with listening, which I'm sure many of us listen to music as I do. Now, playing music, I also am versed with playing music. I play this instrument right here called the euphonium, if you care to know. And I also write music for the euphonium. Moving on to the actual argument, a main figure of this argument and kind of what caused me to want to answer or argue against this guy, whose name is Seneca, is in a book that I've read, Hardship and Happiness. He talks about this very topic of what kinds of activities are actually worth our time. And being worth our time, what he actually means is what kinds of activities will further our happiness in life so that we can have a fulfilled life. Specifically, he uses an interesting example at a funeral, of all things, where, say you're this person, you are tapping along and listening to music, let's say Lady Gaga, while you're supposed to be mourning a close relative, let's say. And Seneca reasonably says that this is wrong because, everybody is sad, and if it's someone close to you, then you should at least show that you've cared, right? But I have a few arguments against that I'd like to showcase. First of all, unfound prevalence. What do I mean by this? What I mean is I think there are very few, if any, cases of someone actually tapping along to music and humming along to music in their head during a funeral. And this also involves the fallacy of division, which you may have heard of as attribution error. And this is basically taking one part of a whole and attributing it to everything, when in reality, there are multiple parts of the whole, and so the whole is not just this one thing, but all of them together. In this case, Seneca is attributing this person who's listening to music to everyone, and he assumes that a lot of people are doing this, which is an interesting argument to make when there's clearly not a lot of people doing this. I would argue that although this looks like 75% of people in the world do not listen to music or don't tap along while mourning during bereavement, I think it's probably closer to 95%. And this also furthers my next argument, which is that he doesn't really further his goal of answering whether music is a vice or not, because if this argument is so specific to the situation, which actually doesn't occur in real life very often, then he can't use this argument to prove this, and thus it doesn't further any goal of actually answering the question. Finally, my third argument is the adumbration of Stoicism. What do I mean by this? First of all, adumbration means outline, and I believe that the person in this scenario, us, let's say, is actually closer to the Stoic principles than Seneca is arguing for here. And why do I say this? Well, Seneca is indeed a Stoic, and some of the Stoic doctrines talk about externals and not caring about them. Well, I would say that an external would be a close family member dying, let's say, and you know that you have no control over it, but still some people are sad and some people are indifferent. And I would say the Stoics would be indifferent because they know they couldn't control this person dying or not, and so they have no reason to be sad. So in this case, the person who is tapping along, it's a bad drawing for tapping along, but you get what I mean. The person who's tapping along while the coffin's right here is actually closer to the Stoic doctrine because although it seems kind of weird that someone would do this, in Stoic principles, this person is not caring about externals. He knows that this person died not by his cause, and thus he can't control externals, and knows that it's okay, technically, to be tapping along and to be happy. And I would also make the argument that someone who seems happy like this can also be in bereavement and mourning in their mind, and we would have no idea. And so finally, I believe it's fair to say that Seneca's argument is reasonably proven wrong, and his claim that music is bad for nature is unfounded, as, first of all, examples of people actually doing it don't come up a lot, and it doesn't further his goal of actually answering the question. It kind of misdirects it or goes besides it altogether. And third of all, it's actually closer to Stoic doctrine what this hypothetical person is doing in this situation. I know I've talked a lot about Stoicism in this presentation, so I would like to bring a point in from a different philosophy, which is Aristotelian, and specifically Aristotle's virtues. In a recent book that I read, I believe Nicomachean Ethics or Politics, Aristotle actually talks about music in a better light, in the light of education. Because if we think about what music is useful for, well, it's useful for expressing emotion. And Aristotle is saying that, well, if music is good for expressing emotion, obviously, if you are bad at music, then you could say that you're bad at expressing your emotions in this regard. Well, if someone is good at music and someone works towards being a better musician, let's say, or being more knowledgeable about music, then they may be able to better express their emotions. And this is important for education and especially development of children. because we know that lots of development goes on in early life, especially emotional development. And I believe we've pretty well summed up my argument, and I look forward to making the next video, and I look forward to you viewers watching it. Thank you.